The one thing stopping you from changing the world. Raise your hand if you feel like you're here to do great things and change the world. Keep your hand raised if you feel like you're doing everything you can on that mission to change the world right now. So why did so many hands drop? I'm going to share 5 words with you right now, and I promise you, truer words have never been spoken, and yet they're not the words that you're going to want to hear right now. You are going to die. You are going to die. Dr. Bronnie Ware, famous Australian palliative care nurse, was caring for patients in their last 8 weeks of life. And she realized that there's a tremendous amount of clarity and wisdom that comes towards the end of your life. There's a lot you can learn from people that are on their deathbed. And she began asking them a series of questions, one of them being, what are your biggest regrets? And from men, women of all ages, everyone that is facing death, there was one regret that was common among them all. And it's something that I'll remember word for word to this day, something that hit home and struck a chord with me, and my life has never been the same since. Those words, the number one regret of the dying is, I'd wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. So right around this time where I first learned about Dr. Bronnie Ware, I was invited on a house build project down in Mexico. Many of you in the room have been on these house builds with us over the last 6.5 years. And we left on a Friday morning at 7 a.m. from San Diego, and we drove down to Mexico, and in 2.5 days, we built a home for a family that was living on dirt. They had sticks for walls, plywood, maybe if they were lucky, and a tarp for a roof. And in that part of the world, just 2.5 hours away from here, they actually didn't name their children until they were a year old for a very long time. And the reason that they didn't name their children is because the infant mortality rate was that high. They didn't want to get attached and connected to them because children were passing away so young. So not only are these homes just homes for them to move into, but it's often a matter of life and death for the families there. And so we have this experience. We build a home, we visit an orphanage, we feed 150 families, we play with the kids. And the entire time, I'm allowing myself to be fully present to this experience. Sunday at noon, we dedicate the home. The pastor gives the speech. We let the family walk into their new home for the very first time. And now I'm in the van, driving home. Sunday afternoon, we're going over a dirt bumpy road. I'm sitting directly behind the driver's seat. And I start crying. And I'm not a big crier, so I knew that there was something there. And instead of pretending like that didn't exist and pushing it away, I decided to explore what that was. Why was I so emotional about this particular experience? Now, up until that point, I had accomplished a lot, I felt like. I'd spent 5 years on active duty in the Marines. I got my degrees in kinesiology and psychology. I'd started a business that was doing well that I eventually sold. I had an amazing young man that was thriving as my son, and I had the check. I felt like all of the things that I needed to have, I had. And yet here I was having this incredibly emotional experience from building a home for a family in need. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I actually came up with a term for it later called divine discomfort, but I just knew that I was capable of more. I knew there was something in my life that I was meant to do. I was meant to do great things and change the world, and yet I wasn't doing it in that moment. And so I became obsessed with this topic. I became obsessed with purpose. I became deeply committed to the work of what is it that I feel like I'm here to do in this lifetime. Earlier I asked you if you were here to do great things and change the world, and you raised your hand and said yes. I want to play pretend for a moment. Let's put down our adult walls for just a second and pretend that you actually are here to do great things and change the world. Now, additionally, pretend with me for a moment that you actually have the blueprint to follow through with exactly what you're here to do. Not only are you here to do something great, but you actually have the blueprint to follow, what many of you would call your purpose or your meaning in life. If you ever studied psychology, you're probably familiar with Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. At the very top of that pyramid, he said, is this need for self-actualization. He says that what one can be, one must be. So what is it that we must be? You know you're here to do something great, and I just challenged you and told you that there's a blueprint that you can follow, your purpose. And so what I want you to do right now is just to consider this. I'm going to give you something to take away that you can think about, because I do believe that the quality of our life depends upon the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. So I'm going to ask you a few questions right now to consider. Your purpose and what you're here to do, this unique blueprint that you have, and only you alone, is at the intersection of three things. The first one is your passions. What are you passionate about? We know the difference between passion and purpose. Passion, internal; purpose, external. What are we doing in the world? Start to think about the kinds of things that make you come alive. Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what it is that makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Consider everything that excites you, the things you're curious about, the things that you find yourself thinking about when you're driving the car. The second thing is start to consider your strengths. What are you great at? I know this is challenging for some of us. We can tell a lot of other people what they're great at, but we often don't give ourselves the credit. Another way of asking this question is, what are your God-given abilities? What kind of experiences do you have? What kind of things are you really, really good at? And then the third one is your connection. Out of all the challenges that our world is facing, social, environmental, what do you feel most connected to? What do you feel like pulls at your heartstrings the most? And again, you may not have all the answers right away, but start to consider, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And what is your connection? What do you feel like you're here to do in this lifetime? At the intersection of those three things is your purpose. That is your unique blueprint. Now, since that time that I first was invited to Mexico, we've been going back for 6.5 years, and we actually created an organization called the Greatness Foundation that helps people align with their purpose. It allows them to go out and do great things. We actually trademarked that term now, do great things. And I invite all of you to start to consider, what are you here to do? But the title of this talk is, The One Thing Stopping You from Changing the World. So the first two things are already taken care of. You already know you're here to do something great. The second one is you already know internally you have the blueprint. What is that third one? What is it that's stopping you? It's you. What's stopping you from changing the world? It's you having the courage to live a life true to yourself. And so my invitation is not to wait until we're on our deathbed. My invitation is not to wait until we have a close call with our health, or we lose loved ones around us, or till we hit a rock bottom financially, drugs, alcohol, whatever that is for you. My invitation is to have the courage right now to go out and live a life true to you. Let's do great things, and let's change the world. Thank you.
Thrive Union is a real-world community and life school dedicated to human well-being. Our regular events include parties, game nights, supper clubs, hikes, and Thrive meetings to build deep levels of intimacy, empower us to grow, and improve our world. Our life school provides educational videos, articles, conferences, and educational courses. Visit our website at thriveunion.org to learn more.